King. Remind us often of how your word teaches us to love one another. Loving one another involves acceptance, respect, and value. It is loving not just in words or speech, but loving with actions and in truth. Your word also tells us that anyone who hates a brother or sister is in darkness and walks around in darkness. Help us, Lord, to walk in enlightenment and to truly walk in the light of loving God and loving our neighbor. This I ask in Christ's name, amen.
Has every member had an opportunity to record their presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance.
Thank you.
Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill number 2488 by Representative Riley, an act concerning taxation relating to electric vehicles, establishing the EV Energy Equity Road Repair Tax Act, and providing for a road repair tax on the distribution of electricity from public charging stations. House Bill number 2489 by the Committee on Financial Institutions and Rural Development, an act concerning financial institutions relating to technology-enabled fiduciary financial institutions pertaining to procedures when undercapitalized or insolvent, fees and assessments, grounds for denial of application, examinations, insurance and capital requirements, disclosures to consumers, and mandatory reporting of elder abuse. House Bill number 2490 by the Committee on Children and Seniors and Act Concerning Persons with Disabilities relating to income taxation, ABLE, savings accounts, authorizing the state treasurer to determine account owners and designated beneficiaries, adopting the federal definition for an eligible individual, and adding persons who may open an account.
Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Speaker appoints Representative Delperdang to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Body. For the first item of business, we will hear House Bill 2477. For the purpose carrying 2477, the chair recognizes Representative Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2477 would codify on a temporary basis the provisions of Executive Orders 2201 and 2202. In conjunction with the disaster declaration, these executive orders were issued by the governor on January 6, 2022. The provisions in these executive orders are quite similar to those that were issued at the beginning of COVID, and in fact, some of these we put into statute. By passing the legislation today, the governor's disaster declaration will be allowed to expire later this week. Under the provisions of House Bill 2477, adult care homes and health care providers will have flexibility to meet staffing demands without the need for a state of disaster emergency. House Bill 2477 will provide hospitals and adult care homes necessary tools to address staffing challenges and to help ensure access to care for patients. The proponents, we had 4 or 5, the Kansas Adult Care Executives, the Kansas Center for Assisted Living, the Kansas Healthcare Association, the Kansas Hospital Association, and Leading Age Kansas. These proponents indicated that House Bill 2477 is a much-needed safety net, which will allow them to work together with their associations, their agencies, the legislature, and the governor's office to find and create more permanent solutions to their staffing needs. This bill temporarily suspends until May 15th certain statutes and regulations for adult care homes and health care providers, again, providing them the flexibility that they need to meet these staffing needs as they deal with the latest COVID surge. While certainly not a fix-all, we believe that this bill will go a long way toward helping the proponents staff their facilities and provide necessary services to Kansas. And as we get closer to that May 15th date, we'll continue to work with the proponents to see if an additional extension is needed or if there are long-term provisions we need to put in place. Before standing for questions on the bill, I do have one technical amendment, Mr. Chair.
Representative, would you like to explain the bill?
Yes, I would. So actually, last night the revisers were looking through this one more time and discovered there were 2 references to the original 2020 state of disaster. So this simply removes that language and instead says that these provisions apply while the bill is in force and effect, and so until May 15th, unless we take further action in the future. So pretty simple, just removing the references to the old disaster declaration. And I would stand for questions on that amendment.
And does any member wish to speak to the bill or the amendment? The chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the Chairman of Judiciary, except I thought we found the error night before last, but the nights all, days all run together. It's a good amendment. I recommend you vote for it. Thanks.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? If there's no further discussion, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close and move my amendment.
You've heard the motion by Representative Patton to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes appear to have it. Motion passes. And to continue, Chair recognizes Representative Concanon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you stand for questions? Just have a couple of simple questions. The one section in the bill that pertains to out-of-state professionals working in Kansas, I believe it's Section H. Is there anything in that that requires them to work on a COVID issue?
It does not. It's not specific to COVID.
Nothing specific to COVID. And in current law that we passed that ends March 31st, we have an emergency temporary license for those professionals that's in current law.
Correct.
So if we put this into statute, does that not create a conflict? That they have, in one law, they have an emergency temporary license, and the other one says they don't need anything to come into the state.
I don't know that would create a conflict. Probably provides two routes for them to practice in Kansas. One would be under current law and one would be under this.
Two routes, but if there was a liability issue, it might create some confusion. Would you say that's
Potentially,
true?
without looking at it, potentially.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So with that, I have an amendment.
Amendment looks long. Representative, would you like to explain it?
Sure. So what my amendment does is the temporary emergency license law that's in place now that expires at the end of March. This amendment extends that to May 15th to coincide with this bill that we're looking at today. That's the first thing. It does three things. Second thing is that it omits physicians. That Section H includes all professionals except physicians. Physicians can either practice here on a multi-state compact, or they can do the temporary licensure. And then the third thing it does is it deletes the section on the fee, where we were allowing them to not pay the fee during COVID. I think at the time that we wrote that, the thought was we weren't sure what the economy was going to do, and there was some concern that people wouldn't be able to afford. We didn't want that to keep them from renewing their license. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, does any member wish to speak to the amendment? Okay. Okay. Clerk, if there is no objection, the clerk will read the amendment, please.
Page 3, following line 5 by inserting Section 2, KSA 2021, Sub 48965 is hereby amended to read as follows. A, notwithstanding any statute to the contrary, the State Board of Healing Arts may grant a temporary emergency license to practice any profession licensed, certified, registered, or regulated by the board to an applicant with qualifications the board deems sufficient to protect public safety and welfare within the scope of professional practice authorized by the temporary emergency license for the purpose of preparing for, responding to, or mitigating any effect of COVID-19. B, notwithstanding any statute to the contrary, an applicant may practice in Kansas pursuant to a temporary emergency license upon submission of a non-resident healthcare provider certification form to the Kansas Healthcare Stabilization Fund and without paying the surcharge required by KSA 403404 and amendments thereto. This section shall expire on May 15, 2022. On page 5 in line 12 after Kansas by inserting, except that this subsection shall not authorize the practice of medicine and surgery. In line 41 after the semicolon by inserting and. In line 42 by striking all after education. In line 43 by striking all before the period. On page 6 in line 30 after SUP by inserting 48965 and. Also in line 30 by striking is and inserting are and renumbering sections accordingly. On page 1 in the title, in line 5 after the semicolon by inserting, extending the authority of the State Board of Healing Arts to issue temporary emergency licenses. Also in line 5 after SUP by inserting 48965 and. In line 6 by striking section and inserting sections.
Chair recognizes Representative Kincannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After further discussion with some of the committee, we need some more time to discuss this and have a look at it. And so for that reason, I will withdraw my amendment.
Body, are there any objections to the withdrawal? There are no objections. The amendment is withdrawn. With that, do we have anyone else that wishes to speak to the bill? Representative Carmichael?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope folks understand there will be an attempt made to accommodate the representative's amendment. It's just people need to look at it, and this is going to the Senate, and sadly it'll probably be back. So we'll get to it in due course. This is absolutely must-pass legislation. We have worked hard in the Judiciary Committee, not only with the stakeholders, but with the governor's office. It's bipartisan cooperation like our constituents would like to see, especially in a time of emergency. And so I ask that you vote yes on HB 2477 as amended. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Jacobs. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to discuss the bill? Not seeing so. If there's no further discussion, Representative Patton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises and report House Bill 2477 favorably for passage as amended.
You've heard the motion from Representative Patton to report HB 2477 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose, nay. Ayes appear to have it. This concludes our general orders. Chair recognizes Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole recommends House Bill 2477 be passed as amended.
Speaker recognizes Representative Delperdang for a motion to adopt the committee report.
Thank you. I move adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
Heard the motion to adopt. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Speaker recognizes Representative Hawkins for an original motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Rule 2311, I move that an emergency be declared and that House Bill 2477 be advanced to that order of business. Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Want me to wing it? Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
This may be in that. I need a title. Thank you. House Bill number 2477 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning governmental response to COVID-19 relating to health and healthcare, renewing provisions of law authorizing expanded practice by certain healthcare professionals, providing for exceptions thereto, suspending certain licensure and other requirements for adult care homes.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2477. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none. 106 having voted in favor and 5 against the passage of House Bill 2477, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Is there any objection to returning to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions? Seeing no objection, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2491 by Representatives Proctor, Epley, and Neely, an act concerning roads and highways, designating a portion of U.S. Highway 73 as the Colonel Chuck Rambo Memorial Highway.
Are there announcements? Speaker recognizes Representative Hawkins for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, we have legislative Bible study tomorrow morning, Wednesday, January 19th at 7 a.m. in room 142 South. We'll be discussing Rising to Greatness, Faithful Stewardship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Other announcements? Representative Dodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind everyone I've got a bill coming. Currently, it's RS 22, RS 2388. This is for Gold Star Family Memorial. I'll have the bill for signature on my desk there at 83. If anyone would like to add their name to that as a co-sponsor, I'd appreciate it. We currently have 52 on there now, and a similar bill is coming from the senator from Emporia. This is no charge to the taxpayer. We've got a site selected. We've got a pedestal selected, a plaque that is selected so far with some language on it, and a funding committee has already been set up to provide funding through private sources. So appreciate your support. Thanks.
A reminder, members, if you wish to make an announcement, please press your Speak to Bill button. Representative Penn.
Thank you. This is a quick reminder that the Freshman Caucus for the Republicans will be hosting our luncheon today over at 622 North Van Buren right after lunch. Our presentation will be on Vice Chair 101. We hope that you can join us. Thank you.
Representative O'Hobbesome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. South Central, we have a luncheon tomorrow. Good news and bad news. Bad news, I won't be chair after tomorrow. Good news, we have a new chair coming in. So tomorrow at 152 South, there's a luncheon and there'll be food. Please stay to welcome our new chair. Thank you very much.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House adjourn until January 19th, Wednesday, January 19th at 11 a.m. pro forma.
Heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. The House is adjourned.